I've been answering my followers' questions about visiting London for 9 years now. So in today's video, I'm going to answer the top 100 questions that I get so you can get lots of info for your trip, covering transport, safety, food and drink, weather and logistics, things to do, accommodation, and lots more. And it's a beautiful day, so I'm gonna do it while taking you around to some of my favorite green spaces around London that a lot of tourists miss, starting with Postman's Park, which got its name from its popularity with workers as a lunchtime spot at the old General Post Office that was around the corner. There's also a famous memorial here called the Watts Memorial that was erected in 1900, which commemorates everyday heroes and common people who've died in tragedies over the years. You might actually recognize this park and the memorial from the movie Closer. Okay, let's start with questions about accommodation. What would work out cheaper, booking a hotel with breakfast included or booking Airbnb and cooking for yourself? Well, a couple things here. First off, I don't recommend booking Airbnb in London. There are a variety of reasons why, with the main one being that it's negatively impacting the housing market here, and people like me, our rents have gone way, way up, partially because of it. And second, most hotels in London, you can't book a room with breakfast included. And usually if you want to get breakfast added on, it's going to be at least like £20 per person per night. So personally, I would recommend two options. First, you can book an apart hotel, which is kind of like a hotel that is set up like an apartment. Usually there's a kitchenette and you can use that for your breakfast. Or you can opt to just go outside of your hotel and find nearby cafes and have what's probably gonna be a more affordable and better breakfast. I'm gonna be there in August. Is it better to get an Airbnb over a hotel? Well, I just talked about Airbnb, but also personally, I'm a hotel gal. If I'm on holiday, I don't really wanna be doing chores. I don't wanna have to pay a cleaning fee, but then also I'm cleaning. Plus, if you're coming in the summer, don't forget that most flats in London that you would get on Airbnb aren't going to have air conditioning. So if you don't want to be super hot while you're there, then I would opt for a hotel. I just love hotels. I like to come back and the room's clean after you've been out sightseeing for the day. What times of year tend to have more reasonable hotel prices? This tends to be when the demand for visiting London is the lowest, and that is January. No one really wants to come in January because it's cold, and also early November before it gets to Thanksgiving time for the Americans and it gets to the festive season. Anything other than Airbnb to get an integrated kitchen with our hotel room in London? Yes, as I've mentioned, we have apart hotels here. There are actually tons around the city. There's a brand called Native, and they have options for studios up to flats that have multiple bedrooms. I have also stayed at the Resident Hotel in Covent Garden, and they have a little kitchenette where you can definitely have breakfasty things. There's a fridge, a microwave. It has basically everything I think personally that you could need. By the way, I have links and supporting information for every question I'm going to answer in this video in the video resource document, which you can get by clicking the link down in the description or scanning the QR code here. So everything will be in there. I would definitely recommend, if you're watching through this video, that you scan that, sign up, and get it for free. What's a good, safe area to get a hotel for the first time here, an area that's close to tourist spots? Honestly, anything that's close to the touristy areas is going to be completely safe. You should always just check the reviews of any hotel that you book to see if anyone mentions anything about the area, but generally speaking, you're gonna be fine. What cheap accommodation options do you recommend? Hostels are by far the cheapest option when getting accommodation in London. You can book by the bed, so you're only paying for the bed and then you'll be sleeping in a room with other people. I'm a little too old for that now, but I did do this in my early 20s and it was actually a really fun way to travel. Also, there's some websites and Facebook groups that can help you to facilitate house sitting or house exchange. So those are free options. Are there any hotels with adjoining rooms so we can put the kids in the other room? I would also want to do that if I was traveling with kids. There actually aren't a ton of options for hotels with adjoining rooms in London, but if you look at the Treehouse Hotel, they do have this option. This is like a lower end luxury hotel that has a great location in Marylebone. I've stayed there, it's great. They're also just generally kid friendly. Also the Montcalm East, which is by Old Street Station. I have also stayed there and they do rooms that have adjoining doors that are great for if you're traveling with the kids. I do have an article with lots of other options though, which will be in the resource doc. Do you have any hotel suggestions that are outside of London and cheap? Honestly, I wouldn't stay outside of London. By the time you take the train in every day, it's gonna cost you more money than maybe that you saved, maybe not. But by the time you get all the way into town, you won't be able to go back to your hotel if you wanna like maybe change clothes before dinner. I honestly just don't think it's worth it. If you're gonna do London, you might as well just be staying in London. And if there's any train strikes happening when you're in town, that could mean that you actually can't even get into London. Okay, let's move on to the next section and the next place. This is Festival Gardens. It was created in 1951 by Sir Albert Richardson as part of the City of London Corporation's contribution to the Festival of Britain. I love it because it has beautiful flowers, a nice little bit of green grass, and of course, you can't beat the view of St. Paul's. Okay, let's talk about transportation. I always get 9 million questions about this. Can you recommend the best ways to get around London using Uber or taxis? Well, Ubers, of course, you can only book through their app, and taxis, you can use either Uber or you can download an app called Get. Even apps like FreeNow and Bolt, they all allow you to get Uber-style taxis or black cabs. My wife and I will be visiting London with our 2 college-age children. They don't have their own credit cards. Can I tap my credit card for all 4 of us on the tube? Well, if they're college age, I'm guessing that they do have their own debit card, which they should use their own debit cards and tap those. Or if they have Apple Pay or Google Pay, that also works. I'm sure you're also gonna split up, so you guys wanna have your own methods of payment. What also does work is if you have one debit card and that debit card, there's a physical one and somebody has it on Google Pay or Apple Pay on their phone, someone can use the physical card, someone can use the phone, and that counts as 2 separate people essentially, even though it's the same card, so that works too. Best transport options for going to Oxford or Cambridge. By far, train is the best option, and you're gonna wanna book your tickets in advance because the pricing is variable. Best ways to travel to London from the Southampton Cruise Terminal. Also by train, you can also book a taxi transfer. There is a company that we would recommend because you definitely don't wanna try to use Uber for this. You need to book one in advance for sure, and that company will be linked in the resource doc. Is it cheaper to get a topped up Oyster card or just use your debit card? It's actually more expensive to use an Oyster card because you have to pay £7, and that's a non-refundable fee for the Oyster card, whereas you don't have to pay anything for your card. And then what you pay for the actual ride is the same across debit, credit, Apple Pay, Google Pay, and Oyster. Coming for a concert at Tottenham Stadium, best transport from central London. Well, it depends on where you're staying and where you're coming from in central London. But my answer to questions like this is always to check Google Maps. I think people think I have like some magical option that isn't included on Google Maps for transportation, but everything is on there except for airport buses. But using Google Maps or Citymapper just accounts for any nuances, like if you're traveling late or early in the day, or when you're actually on the ground in London. It will be able to tell you if there's maybe a line that's down or there's severe delays, and it can reroute you another way. I'm visiting with 2 kids, 3 and 10 years old. Do they get any transport discounts? So kids under 5, they travel on transport completely for free. And then kids who are 5 to 11, they are eligible for something that's called a young visitor discount, which is something that you can get put onto an Oyster card by any member of staff at basically any tube station. And that gives them 50% off all of their transport for 2 weeks. Keep in mind though that the Oyster card you'll need for this does cost £7. So if you're only in town for like 2 or 3 days, or you're not really planning on using transport that much, it might not even be worth it, and you can just give them one of your debit or credit cards. We want to take a train to Bath for the day. Should we book train tickets ahead of time or buy at the station? For Bath especially, book tickets ahead of time. That's because that route for some reason already gets quite expensive, but the longer you wait, they get really, really expensive, so book ahead. You can buy tickets for trains on Omeo or Trainline. How early do you have to get to the Eurostar station? So if you download the Eurostar app, generally if you look at your ticket, they will tell you at what time they think you should be at the station. I do find that it tells you somewhat early. I just took it last weekend and it told me to be about an hour early, and I was like, there was no reason for me to be this early. It is so dead and so quiet. That being said, if you travel certain times, it can get busy, but just as a guidance, check what time it says that you should arrive and just plan to do that. But even if you do like 30 minutes ahead, you usually should be fine, but maybe you don't want to leave it that close. Do you have to tap your card again when you get off the bus? No, you only tap your card when you get on the bus, and then you don't tap it when you get off. And keep in mind that if you're gonna take 2 buses within an hour, your second and any other bus rides within an hour are actually going to be free because you get unlimited bus rides for 60 minutes once you use 1 bus. What's the best way to get from Heathrow Airport to my hotel? Well, where is your hotel? That's the first question. This is a big city, and the best transport option for you from Heathrow depends on where you're trying to go. So where is your hotel? But also, what is your budget? Some people are happy to pay 60 to 100 pounds just to get a taxi for the convenience. And some people want the cheapest option possible, like taking the Piccadilly line, which gets you into central London in like an hour-ish. Ultimately, you should definitely watch my video about all of your transport options from Heathrow. That will give you absolutely everything you need. I want to take a taxi from the airport to my hotel. Which app or company do you recommend? It depends on what airport you're flying into, and if you want somebody that is going to track your flight and greet you at arrival so you don't have to do the whole let me call an Uber and then try to find them and blah, blah, blah. I would recommend using Welcome Pickups if you just want it to be seamless and they come and meet you inside and you don't have to actually go find them. That's gonna be a little bit more expensive than if you try to use Uber, but keep in mind that Uber, it's not really an option for the airports. Stansted, Gatwick, and Luton's a bit hard too because they are just so far outside of the center that you generally will struggle to get a taxi there by Uber. Do you tip taxi drivers? Okay, you don't have to, but generally, if you had an okay one, you can tip them an extra £1, or if you had quite a long journey, let's say from the airport, you could give an extra £2 to £3 if they helped you with your bags and they ultimately did a good job. I heard you have to flag down buses in London. They don't just stop. Is this true? How can I make sure that I get on? Yes, so if you're stood at a bus stop and you see the bus that you want to get on coming to your bus stop, you want to make sure you put your hand out like this to the side, and that signals to the bus driver that you do want them to stop. Buses don't stop at every stop automatically. They try to make up time if they're running late, by skipping the stops where nobody on the bus wants to get off via the button where they say, ding, ding, I want to get off. And nobody at the stop has said oh, can you stop for me? So definitely put your hand out if you need your bus, or it will just go right by you. City Mapper or Google Maps, do you have a preference? I use them both interchangeably. If you have one of my itineraries or casual tourist guides, using Google Maps is great because the digital map that comes with those is integrated right into your Google Maps app. It's fantastic, that does the job. City Mapper also, sometimes I just use it for an extra set of eyes, I guess, to see what options it's giving me for the routes and where I'm trying to go. But honestly, using either or works. You don't have to worry too much about having multiple transport apps. When navigating London via the tube, do I need to concern myself with the pink card readers? No, to be honest, most tourists won't come in contact with these pink card readers. Essentially what they are, and to be honest, most Londoners don't even know, they only show up when you are transferring from an overground train-ish, the actual overground line, which is the orange one, to a tube. So it's most stations that tourists won't end up at. But basically, if you get off and you see some pink card readers, if you are transferring to a different type of line, so let's say you're taking the overground and then you're switching to the Elizabeth line, then do tap your card on the pink card reader. But if you're just getting off at that station, then you don't need to. If you don't remember to do it, it's not a huge deal, don't worry. Is it better to buy a ticket for the Uber boat in advance or just use Oyster? Nope, just use whatever you're using to get on the tube or the bus and use that same method. You definitely don't need to book in advance. It seems there are several options for train operators in England: Great Northern, Avanti, West Coast, and others. Is there some that are better than others to book? No, you don't have a choice in most cases. Basically, all these different companies cover different parts of the UK, so that's why Avanti West Coast will take you from London to other parts that are in the west of the country. Southeastern obviously covers a more southeastern part of England, so on and so forth. So whatever pops up as an option for you, if you're looking at train journeys to get somewhere, that's just what you should take and you're good to go. Transport's done. Let's move on to the next stop and the next set of questions. This is Fountain Court, which is so hidden and peaceful despite the fact that it is just off the very busy Fleet Street. And in the 1890s, this was home to a lot of famous literary people like the poet W.B. Yeats. and it's said to have inspired Oscar Wilde's Picture of Dorian Gray. And as for the actual fountain, it was built in 1681, and it's believed to have been the first fountain ever to be in London, and it used to be able to spurt up to 30 feet high. So I love it here. Okay, let's talk about safety. And I'm gonna hold the microphone so the fountain isn't too loud in the background. How are Americans being received in the UK in our current political climate? I have been getting a lot of questions about this in the last month or so, and I don't know if it's because a lot of people are watching certain news outlets that are telling them like, oh, everyone outside of the US hates you and you shouldn't be traveling or anything. It's actually not like that at all. Most people around the world, especially in London, are very aware and are not stupid, to be honest, but they're very aware that you are not what the current administration are doing. I would say the only time that you should be worried about how you might be received is, quite honestly, if you are going around and talking about anything that's anti-immigrant or anything that's like hateful or racist or sexist, anything like that. Because in London, it is a very welcoming city. It's a city full of immigrants, including myself. And honestly, that kind of talk is just not tolerated here. But otherwise, no one's gonna care that you're American. Is it really dangerous to go see Elizabeth Tower and other landmarks at night? No, actually, it's probably one of the safest areas to be in London at night. So totally fine if you wanna go around the evening time. How safe is London for a solo female traveler? Any suggestions for what to do? So generally, it's very safe. Remember that millions of people, especially women like me, go around London doing their day-to-day stuff well into the late evening and are completely fine. That being said, it's a major city. Use general precautions. I usually, if it's after like 12 o'clock at night, especially on the weekdays when the night tube isn't running, I'll generally just take a taxi to make sure I get home okay. But it is mostly fine. Do the usual precautions and you're good to go. As for what to do in London as a solo traveler, I do quite a few cities on my own, and I love to book onto tours and experiences, so I'm not doing things on my own. And I especially think it's good to book things that you can do in the evening, because sometimes I just don't want to have dinner on my own. And I find that if I book onto like a food tour in the evening or some kind of something, that I end up meeting people who are like, oh, join us for dinner or join us for drinks. And then I don't have to be on my own doing that stuff by myself in the evening. How differently do people treat you after finding out that you're American? They don't. There are thousands and thousands of Americans that live here and visit London. They don't care. Is it really dangerous? Pickpockets. Tons of videos about it on IG. Okay, I've lived here for over a decade. I have never been pickpocketed. I've basically never had any problems. Of course, if you're on Instagram or TikTok and you see one video of someone being pickpocketed or some kind of theft, the algorithm is going to show you those videos more and more and more, because that's how these platforms work. But don't make yourself a target. Be careful with your belongings, and generally just be aware of your surroundings, and for the most part, you will be completely fine. Is East London safe? Heard crime has picked up there. Where are you guys hearing this stuff? I literally live in East London and it's perfectly safe and normal. I never have any problems there. It's fine. Hackney Wick, ? Going there for a concert in July. Is it safe to wander around at night? Hackney Wick is awesome, especially in the summertime and especially after there's been some kind of big show or gig at one of the nearby stadiums. So you should definitely go around that area, especially near Crate Brewery and Barge East. Those are really great outdoor areas that are right on the canal. They will be super buzzy, lots of people having drinks, having food, and I think you'll actually love it. Maybe you'll see me there. Who knows? Is phone theft a huge problem in London? It is a bit, but again, as long as you're careful, don't have your phone out where people can easily ride up on a moped or a bike and snatch it out of your hand. If you need to look at maps, just like go to the side, kind of like angle your body towards a building so it's not easy for someone to come up next to you. And don't put your phone or anything like that into a pocket where it's easily that somebody can take it out. Have it in a zippered up pocket. I also, to be honest, when I'm going around on the tube, I'm not even that careful. I just keep my phone in my pocket, but I always have my hand in my pocket, or if I need to take my hand out, I take my phone out so it's actually in my hand. There's never any problems with like people swiping on the tube, but that's sometimes where pickpockets can happen. What are the dangerous areas we should avoid? None that tourists ever would come across, probably that you've never even heard of. I actually can't even think of any areas that I'm like, oh, I would probably avoid going there as a Londoner, so you're completely fine. Is London generally accepting of foreigners? London is literally a city built by and run by foreigners, so absolutely, it's part of the beauty of living here and visiting. Okay, let's walk to the next spot, and the next group of questions will be about things to do. Now we're in Victoria Embankment Gardens, specifically the Whitehall Gardens spot, and I love the flower beds here. There's also some pretty key statues, like the memorial to the poet Robert Burns, and war memorials commemorating World War II and the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. On a sunny day like this, there's always lots of people that come and have their lunch in the sun here, like I just did before filming this. But now we're gonna go through the things to do questions. There's a lot, so buckle up. What are the best nighttime attractions other than sleeping? I don't know, sleeping sounds pretty good, but I understand you're in London. So going to the theater is a pretty popular nighttime activity for tourists here. There's also this really special thing I've talked about a few times in other videos called the Ceremony of the Keys. And it's a really special way to experience the Tower of London and see this incredible ceremony that happens every single night and has for centuries. And Walks does a really good walking tour in the Tower of London at night once it's closed, plus seeing that ceremony. So I would definitely recommend booking that. You could also put together your own little pub crawl. I would recommend doing this in Notting Hill or around London Fields and Broadway Market. Keep in mind that the pubs close at 11, but this is a good option if you don't want to stay out too late and maybe you want to make some local friends. We also have tons of amazing cocktail bars all around the city, but I think Soho is a great place to experience really nice high-end ones and also kind of like middle of the ground ones too. I do have 2 nightlife videos that you can watch after this, one for Soho and one for Shoreditch, so go watch those after. What are the best free or low-priced evening walking tours available? So I don't usually recommend free walking tours because they tend to be quite exploitative of the tour guides, sometimes charging them to be able to run the tour, which is just silly. But one affordable walking tour I think is great is essentially an ethical Jack the Ripper walking tour. It's run by Rebel Tours. It starts around 6 o'clock at night, and the women who run these tours are fantastic, especially because a lot of the Jack the Ripper tours are quite unethical when it comes to presenting the stories of the victims. And also a lot of them are run by people who are not historians, like the guides at Rebel Tours are, and they actually don't know what they're talking about, so they sometimes make stuff up. So I definitely recommend the Rebel Tours version of the Jack the Ripper tour. Are there any canal walks that are especially interesting? Yes, I love doing a canal walk from Angel all the way to Victoria Park, and along the way you can stop at Broadway Market. These are my stomping grounds. I love that area. This route is partially marked off on day 3 of my London itinerary, plus I give you lots of things to do around the canal in the Broadway Market area, so you have lots to do once you get there. What's the best day trip from London? Okay, well, there's no one best. It would be hard to pick just one place, and it kind of depends on what you're looking for and what you want to do. But the 3 most popular places that people go for a day trip from London are Bath, Cambridge, and Oxford. Cambridge and Oxford are quite similar. They're 2 university towns. Most people go and they like to do tours of the university grounds. Can't go inside, obviously. And Bath has ancient Roman baths and a bunch of other stuff that you can do there. So those are the 3 most popular, but I have an article that covers a lot of different places that you can go that will be linked in the resource document. What do I need to reserve weeks ahead of time? Okay, so any popular or trendy restaurants, like right now, the Dover's quite big, Gymkhana is quite hard to get a reservation. Places like that, you're definitely gonna want to try to start getting a reservation a few weeks in advance. The cadence of when they open up bookings, it kind of varies by restaurant. Sometimes it's hard to tell, but you will definitely need to book those in advance unless you're okay with doing like a 5 p.m. dinner on a Wednesday or a 10 o'clock reservation. The very popular afternoon teas are the same deal. I went to go book the Ritz to film a video coming out soon, and getting reservations for that was very difficult for less than like 4 weeks or 5 weeks out. And for tours that do special experiences like that Ceremony of the Keys that I was talking about, those you want to start looking like 3 to 5 weeks in advance. Usually Walks has better availability than anywhere else, so have a look at their link, but definitely look ahead of time. Also, if you're in town around Christmas time and you want to do the light trail at Kew Gardens, that books up really fast, so you'll want to look at that. I think they release tickets maybe in like end of October and hop on those ASAP. Everything else, it kind of depends on a few things, so it's hard to give full advice. But if you have one of my casual tourist guides or London itineraries, they all include a booking and tickets tracker where I tell you exactly which places you do need to reserve in advance and to get tickets in advance, and what places you're okay walking in on the day, or you just don't have to worry about it. Just taking all the guesswork out of that. Which official tours, i.e. Tower of London, Buckingham Palace, would you say are a must? So there aren't really tours of Buckingham Palace unless you are in London during the summertime, and that's when they open up the staterooms for tours in there. Well, they're not really tours, you self-guide yourself. I would definitely recommend that if you're in town from, I think it's July until the end of September. I do think for the major sites, if you really want to soak everything up and also do as much as you can in an efficient time manner so you're not there for like hours on end, especially the Tower of London, which is huge and it can be like overwhelming how much there is to see. I do recommend booking a tour, especially because you might be able to get one with a Blue Badge tour guide, which is a special certification that the best tour guides can get, who have to study for like 10,000 hours or something to be able to get this certification. I will include some links to tours for the major sites that I think that are great to book and that you would really like in the resource doc. What is the best neighborhood to visit? There is no best. It kind of just depends on your vibe and what you want to do. But I do have a video that covers all of the major areas of London and tells you what you can do there. It gives you a bit of description of the vibe and you can work out if you want to visit there or not. So go have a watch of that after this video. So many videos to watch after this. Also, I'll give my opinion. I think East London is the best because it's where I live, but I also just think it's really diverse. There's lots of different types of cuisines you can get, and there's a really varied amount of things to do. Like there's markets, you can walk along the canal, there's really cute shops and cafes, affordable stuff, more high-end stuff. I think it's great. Something you have to do visiting London in December. I think walking around and seeing the Christmas lights, this is a great free thing that you can do, and I think London does some of the best Christmas lights in all of London. I would give you a tip that it does get absolutely rammed with people around like 5 to 7:30, especially because people are also commuting. So I would recommend doing some walking around at like 8:30, 9-ish when it's a lot quieter and it's before they turn the lights off. Usually the lights go off around 11 if they do shut them off. And you can see them without all the crowds. Best Christmas market. I don't know if I can say there is a best one. There's different ones. I can say my least favorite is Winter Wonderland. I avoid that every year like the plague because it gets so crazy and crowded. And I would say maybe my favorite is the one on the South Bank, and I love to go on a weekday around 4 p.m. when the sun has either already set or is just about to set, and it's not quite as busy as from like 5:30 onwards when people start to get out of work. How early before an attraction opens do you need to arrive to be in line? Just a few minutes for whatever time you booked. You don't have to really get there that early. Should I book a ticket for the Tower of London before visiting? I would book a ticket a couple days in advance, or I would book a tour. Best way to book a day trip outside of London. The train is usually the best way to get to certain cities around the UK. It's usually fairly easy depending on where you're trying to go. However, there's also options for all of the major cities that people usually go to book group tours, and then you have the convenience of hopping on a bus from somewhere in central London. They take you to each place. You don't have to worry about getting train tickets. You kind of get guided around and it makes it easy. They usually pack a lot into each day, but if that's going to be more enjoyable for you, then you could do that. Are Yeti water bottles and backpacks okay to take into places like Kensington Palace? Water bottles are generally fine. Backpacks, it depends on how big they are. They're usually okay with backpacks, but sometimes they will ask you to go check them into a cloakroom. I wouldn't have anything bigger than a backpack because some places will say you can't bring it in. What are some great local places to get souvenirs? I actually think the markets are great for souvenirs. I personally think Broadway Market on a Saturday is great. There's lots of vendors selling London-y prints, there's jewelry, candles, lots of food stuff as well. Broadway Market's really good for that. Borough Market, if you manage to go on a weekday quite early so you don't get rammed with people, is also a good place to go if you want to get food that you can take home with you as a souvenir. Also, if you want afternoon tea, Fortnum and Mason is a really good place to get like beautiful afternoon tea if you don't mind spending a bit more money, but they package it up really nicely, and also it's just classic. Everybody knows Fortnum and Mason. Oh, also, if you want prints, East End Prince is my favorite place to go for London-y prints. It's off Brick Lane and the people who run it are so sweet. What's the best out-of-the-way attractions? So probably for me, I would say Kew Gardens. It's all the way at the end of the District line in Southwest London, but it is this beautiful, massive green space with lots of things to explore. It is so beautifully maintained, and it's also kid-friendly, and you can go and spend a few hours there. They let you bring in picnic supplies and your own food and drink. They also have places to eat and drink there as well. Can you book tickets to go inside Buckingham Palace? So I kind of talked about this, but there are a few ways. So the staterooms, if you are here in the summer, you can book to do that, and they usually have a special exhibition on that changes every year. They open up Buckingham Palace then because that's usually when whoever is the reigning monarch leaves for the summer and they're able to open it up. It is a cool experience. If you're here at other times of the year, you can also technically visit Buckingham Palace two other ways. First, you can get tickets to the Royal Mews, which is actually the working stable of the royal family, and they have their actual horses in there. They also have all of the carriages that the family has used throughout the centuries, which I think is really cool. There's also the King's Gallery, which is a small gallery that holds a rotating exhibition of the items that are in the royal collection. And it's not too big, which is great because I think you don't have to spend that much time there, but it's really unique and beautiful pieces, some that are like centuries old, and that's open all year round. What theater shows do you recommend? So my favorite is definitely The Six, which is basically the 6 wives of Henry VIII that have formed a pop band. Oh, the music is incredible. It's funny, it's clever, the costumes are amazing. I absolutely loved it. I also love The Book of Mormon, The Lion King is such a classic. And if you want something that's like very London-y and that you can't see anywhere else, there's Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap, which is actually the longest running play in all of the entire world. It's been on for, I think it's 71 years now at this point, written by Agatha Christie, of course, and it's like a murder whodunit, and I just think it's classic British theater, so I would recommend that. What is the best place to buy theater tickets? So you have a few options for buying theater tickets. You could go onto an aggregator website like London Theatre Direct, and they have all of the options. You can kind of search by date too to see what is available and whatever time that you want to go. They also have deals sometimes on there. You can also book directly to the theater if you know exactly what show you want to see. Also, if you want to get some last-minute tickets, you can either go to the TKTS booth in Leicester Square on the day at 10 a.m. and get some discounted last-minute tickets, or if you don't want to go there, you can even just go on the TKTS website or their app, and they have those same discounted tickets right on the app, so you can actually just buy them for bed. Actually, it doesn't really make sense to go to the booth. You might as well just do it online. Finally, if you want last-minute tickets and you know a specific show you want to go to, you can go to the box office around 9 a.m. to see if they have any discounted last-minute tickets. I want to go to Edinburgh. Do you have a guide for it? Yes, I love Edinburgh. I have a 48-hour guide on our website that you can read, and it will be linked in the resource doc. Do you have a plan or a guide for Paris? Yes. Actually, last year, my team launched Love in Paris. So we have Paris experts who have created lots of video guides on things to do and things not to do while you're there. And we also launched a Paris itinerary a few months ago, which has been getting rave reviews. It is fantastic. I tested it myself, and I will leave a link to all this, but you should definitely go follow Love in Paris if you're going there. Can I walk in at Sky Garden? The tickets are booked up, but I still want to go. So you used to be able to somewhat easily walk up on the day and get like walk-in tickets, or they tell you come back in a half hour, we'll have some slots available. I've been hearing that tickets are getting harder and harder to get. If you're watching ahead of time, they generally release tickets 3 weeks out on the Monday that is the 3 weeks before. So if you can snag one of those tickets, but it's better than having to rely on walk-in. Alternatively, around the corner is a new viewpoint, which is actually higher up. It's called Horizon 22. And I've had lots of people say that they were able to get walk-in spaces very easily if they went there. Where can we find the schedule for the changing of the guard for the week we arrive? It's actually on the Household Division's website. Very easy to find, but I will put a link in the resource document. Is the Design Museum in London worth visiting? Yes, I actually love the Design Museum, and I love that it's free. They do have some paid exhibitions, which are usually worth it, but it's such a cool space, lots of interesting stuff in there, and it's already part of day 4 of my London itinerary. So if you have that, it's incorporated. When trying to get cheap theater tickets, are the obstructed view seats still okay? Yes, but just you know what you're paying for. You're not going to see everything. They tend to, on the ticket websites, to have a picture so you can see what you are gonna see if you buy that ticket. We're visiting the Tower of London at the end of April, wondering if a skip the line tour is worth it or should we just get our tickets and do the tour on our own. I personally think, as I said before, it is worth it to get a tour, especially an external tour guide. Walks does some great tours. I've done like multiple Tower of London tours with them. It just helps to condense and helps you to see and understand a lot more of what you're seeing from somebody who knows their history really well than just kind of walking around and having to read every plaque and trying to figure out, should we go here, or should we go there, or there's more things and blah, 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 because you really could spend the entire day there, which maybe you want to, but if you don't want to, which I wouldn't, then a tour guide is great. Okay, next stop is another beautiful green space that I love, not too far from here, and we're gonna talk about more questions. Let's go. This is St. James's Park, one of the royal parks owned by the royal family, but it's completely free for anybody to visit. We're not far from Buckingham Palace now, and I'm aware this is not really an under the radar green space, but I thought it'd be nice to stop here. And they are doing some sound checks for some kind of gig that's gonna be happening, and I'm hoping you guys can hear me okay. Okay, let's jump into questions about food and drink in London. If I'm going to a show in the West End with the show starting at 7:30, what time should I arrive at the theater? And how long should I give myself for dinner before the show starts? So for the show, you don't need to particularly arrive that early, maybe 15 minutes before to get your ticket checked and to go find your seat. And if you want to get like some food or drink before you go sit down, you'll want to give yourself a little bit more time. For dinner, just to be safe, you'll want to plan to eat around 5 or 5:30 if you're getting something a little bit more casual. And just so you know, a lot of the restaurants that are around the theater district will do a pre-dinner theater menu. And the idea is kind of a set menu, and it also comes out a little bit faster, and you actually get a little bit of a deal on it. So make sure you have a look if you have a place in mind you want to have dinner at to see if they offer that. Which pubs have the best sticky toffee pudding? Okay, well, a lot of places will do it well, but I have had a good one at the steakhouse called Hawksmoor and at the Queen's Head in Shoreditch. Can you recommend any tips for using food and grocery delivery services in London? If you've ever used Deliveroo or Uber Eats before, it works exactly the same way here as it does back home. And all you have to do is really go into the app, choose whatever supermarket or place you want to order food from, put all the stuff in your cart, and then they usually allow you to put your hotel name into the delivery section. And usually I would recommend that in the delivery notes, you put whatever room you're in and tell them if they should leave it down in the lobby for you or whatever you want them to do with it. It's pretty easy. There's not much to it. Best spot for traditional Sunday roast. There is no best spot. The beauty of London is that we have thousands of pubs in this city, and a lot of them do really good food and really good Sunday roast. So don't consider that you need to travel really far to one specific pub to get a really, really good experience. Because actually the way that Londoners do pubs is we generally wouldn't travel far to go to a specific pub. We would go to what we would call our local, and that's like just one of the pubs nearby where you live. You choose the one that you like the most, and that's where you would go with your friends. There would be an exception if you have a friend that lives on the other side of town and you guys decide to go to the pub that's closer to them, and maybe you want to try out a new place. So I have my favorite places for Sunday roast in my travel guides, but a couple of good ones that I've had recently was at the Coachmaker's Arms in Marylebone, the Duke of Richmond in Haggerston, and the Windmill Pub in Clapham. How to spot some restaurants and pubs that are good and have reasonable prices. I mean, you can't really spot them when you're out and about. And to be honest, the good places that are affordable and tasty and worth going to often do get booked up in advance. So if you have time on your hands to do research yourself, you can go through content like my videos on Instagram and on YouTube and see the places that I've recommended that are good. And then I'd recommend you go onto their websites, browse the menu yourself, and look at the prices and see if it's in line with what you're looking to spend. Then, if it looks like it is, then go and try to make a reservation. Alternatively, you could get one of my itineraries or my casual tourist guides. I've already told you the best places to go and eat, and then I give you price points so you know what's going to be in your budget. And there's the booking and tickets tracker I mentioned earlier that tells you which of the places that you want to go to you do need to reserve in advance and which places that you can just go ahead and walk in. Do we have to be dressed up for afternoon tea? So it depends on which place you're going to. Generally, the more affordable options, there's not really a dress code. you will always be able to see if there is on the website of the place you want to go. Now, for the more high-end experiences and the more luxurious fancy ones that a lot of people want to go to, so like the Ritz, Sketch, Claridge's, they do have a dress code and you do need to stick to that. Again, information on the specifics will be on their website, but you should plan, if you want to do one of the luxurious ones, that you're going to have to go home if you did some sightseeing and get changed and then go back out. How much should I tip at a restaurant? So most restaurants in London these days will automatically include something that's called an optional service charge. It's usually 12.5% to 13.5%. That will be itemized on your bill. It is optional. If you had really bad service, you could ask for them to take it off and that would be fine. If you don't see that optional service charge on your bill, I'd recommend that you tip between 10 and 15% is quite high. Usually people will add 10% on. Can I take my kids to the pub? So the short answer is yes. What's amazing about pubs in the UK is for the most part, they are a family affair during the day, and especially on Sundays where families will bring the kids of all ages to the pub. Everyone's having their Sunday roast, the kids run around, parents are having pints of beer and things like that. That being said, in central London, I would say the majority of the pubs right in the center are not kid-friendly and they're more focused on drinking versus food. However, if you go to a bit more local areas that are still not far from central London, like Notting Hill and London Fields, those pubs are a bit more spacious. They have room for strollers and prams and kids to run around, and they just are generally much more used to having kids in them. But you should expect around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock is when it's not really kid time at the pub anymore. Can you have a traditional Sunday roast? Not on a Sunday. So you could go to a restaurant that's called Roast and they serve some form of Sunday roast meat stuff basically every day of the week, but all other places will only serve Sunday roast on a Sunday. If you find another place that does Sunday roast not on a Sunday, I would be wary. I don't know how good it's going to be. Where can I try a beef Wellington? Roast, that I just mentioned, is a place that you can try a beef Wellington. I also recommend a place in Soho called Sussex that does a really nice beef Wellington. I think they serve it in portions for 2 people and it takes a little bit longer to make, so just keep that in mind. And if you want something more affordable, there's a hotel that's in Bethnal Green called Mama Shelter, and they do what I have found to be the most affordable beef Wellington. I want to try fish and chips. Where do you suggest? So Poppy's is the most popular place that tourists like to go to try fish and chips. It's usually the one that I recommend because it is quite tourist friendly and there's multiple locations. There's one in Soho, Campden, and 2 in Spitalfields. It's also they kind of do it in a fun way. The decor is really cute. It is an award-winning fish and chip stop, so it does well. It's not the cheapest, but it is central London, so that's kind of what you expect. Can you go to the pub and order something non-alcoholic? I don't drink. Yes, of course. You can order a soft drink or water or literally just anything that doesn't have any alcohol in it. Don't forget that a lot of pubs will also do at least some nibbles you could get for the table, or some of them will do full-blown meals. So if you want to go and have a meal and not drink, that's also completely fine. What's the dress code at London restaurants? So unless you're going somewhere that's high end, then usually there's not a specific dress code. I would say if you're trying to go someplace that's a bit trendier, then you can kind of if you want, you can dress a bit trendier and maybe a little bit nicer, but also lots of places you'll be totally fine in pretty casual clothes. It just changes if you're going to these more luxurious high-end places. A lot of Michelin-starred places will also have a bit of a dress code. If you're going to, like I said, afternoon tea at the Ritz or something, you should also expect a dress code there. But whenever in doubt, go on the website of the restaurant and they will tell you if there is a dress code. I also personally think it's always better to be overdressed than to be underdressed, so I go that way usually. I'm gluten-free. Is there a list of restaurants you suggest that are gluten-free friendly? I'd actually argue that the majority of restaurants in London will have at least a few gluten-free options. It's very common for people to be gluten-free here, and so I wouldn't worry too much about it. I appreciate though you probably want to check on menus ahead of time to make sure that you actually want the stuff that they have available. I have a few friends who are gluten-free, so I've been to lots of restaurants that can do vegetarian for me and also gluten-free for them. A couple of my favorites that cover great gluten-free is Bancone, which is a pasta restaurant that does a really good gluten-free pasta, and Caravan, which kind of does I don't know, it's kind of a mix of foods, and they cater to like every dietary requirement, but the food's also really good. And there's multiple locations around London. But also if you have one of my guides, we have a little indicator to show you which of the restaurant recommendations are gluten-free friendly. There's a little GF in there. My wife and I are celebrating our anniversary. What's a special restaurant we could go to? So I would recommend trying to get a reservation at Hyde in Mayfair. It's a pretty high-end, it's like European dishes, cuisine, restaurant. The staff are amazing. They do really nice cocktails. They've got a really nice mix of food that's quite tasty. And if you get drinks and stuff, I would expect that you're gonna probably spend at least £300 altogether. So it's a bit more of it's definitely more of a splurge restaurant, but it's really good. Also, if you wanna do Indian, there is a Michelin-starred Indian restaurant called Trishna that's in Marylebone that does a really nice set menu that you could go for. It's like a small, quaint restaurant, so it's nothing too big. I think intimate is a little bit more romantic. And it's from the same group as Gymkhana, which I feel like everybody knows Gymkhana as a Michelin-starred Indian restaurant, but Gymkhana is bigger, it's a little bit buzzier, and also Trishna is easier to get a reservation at. What's the best place to get a cheap lunch in London? So I think markets are great for getting a cheap lunch, and we have ones all around the city, but it's not just Borough Market, there's lots of other options. One that I really like that's really affordable is called Berwick Street Market. It is on Berwick Street in Soho. I think it's only there Monday through Friday, and it's a favorite of people who work in the area. Now, there's not really anywhere to sit around there, but if you're happy to just have a quick, affordable lunch, they have a really diverse mix of options that you can get. Also, if you prefer to be somewhere that's maybe covered and has seating, then you can go to Covent Garden to Seven Dials Market, and they have lots of options there. It's gonna be a little bit more expensive because you're paying to be able to sit down and everything, but there's a really nice mix of cuisines and small restaurateurs, I guess, that you can try there. And everyone can just pick what they want that's in your group and then come together at your table and eat together. I'm traveling solo. Can I do an afternoon tea just for one, or is it 2 people minimum? So most places will let you book for one, but you will be able to see that if you go to make a reservation online and they don't let you do less than 2. But you should be fine at most places, even if you have your heart set on one place and you doesn't look like you can make a reservation for one. If you email them, you can ask them and see, oh, would you mind if I came in and it was just me and I'm not paying for another person? It should be fine for the most part, but I've kind of done some tests myself to see if I can book for one, and most places will let you do it. Oh my God. Oh, ew, so many pigeons. Let's get out of here, go to the next place. Okay, now I'm in Hyde Park and we are in my favorite section called the Rose Garden, which was developed back in 1994. The roses here are planted twice a year with spring and summer displays, but anytime that you come throughout the year, you're gonna be able to see something. And this area is also known for how good it smells from the flowers. It's like, All right, time to do the weather and logistics questions. Does London get a lot of thunderstorms? No, not really. It actually doesn't rain here as much as people think. However, it does tend to be quite gray. It's more gray than what I'm used to, especially in the winter. If you could recommend one week of the year to visit London, which week would it be? As in like first week of April, the week before Christmas, etc. Honestly, I can't. There's pros and cons to coming to London at any time of year. Like I could say that the first week of December is a great time to come because all the festive stuff is on, but it's also really, really busy in central London because of that. Or I could say you could come in August so you could have some great weather, but you're actually never guaranteed nice weather in this city, especially in the summer. So you could come and it could be blistering hot and we could have a heat wave, or it actually could just be gray and cloudy and kind of cold. So I fully believe you should just pick a week that works for you and make the best of it. First time visiting London, late July, what am I wearing to walk a lot, see sights, and look cute? Well, I'm personally a fan of having a balance of style and comfort when I'm traveling, even if that means I need to stop more and like rest my feet and just relax versus just being go, go, go all the time. So for me, I usually wear, if it's not freezing out, a pair of Allbirds flats or a pair of Rothy's. They're like kind of flat shoes because they're really comfortable, both of them, and they look good while also not killing your feet. You can also wash them, which is another thing I love about them. And the Rothy's ones are made with recycled water bottles, which is very cool. In terms of the rest of what you're gonna wear, honestly, it can be hard to say because it really depends on what the weather is gonna be for that specific day. But if it's gonna end up being hot, I definitely would make sure that you dress as light as possible, but to have an additional layer, because if you're out during the evening, the temperature does drop really fast here in London, so you might find yourself being a bit chilly. Or if you go into, say, like a theater at night, it might be a bit cold in there from the air conditioning. Other things I love to wear while I'm traveling, I think a leather jacket works for most scenarios and is a good layer to have for a variety of temperatures. A trench coat could be great, especially if you find one with a hood and one that is waterproof, because that can kind of double as a rain jacket. I would also bring a pair of trousers with you because, again, it could end up being cold, or it might just get chilly in the evening and you don't feel like you're warm enough in a dress or really light clothing. But ultimately, I give a lot more tips and recommendations for what to wear and what to pack in my London packing guide, so have a look at that if you need some more help. Can you get an ETA another way than online? Don't like the idea of sending passport info. No, you can't. That's the only way. Quietest, least busy time of year to visit London, that would be in January and early November. I'm visiting in October. What's the weather going to be like? Okay, I've kind of already alluded to this, but basically it's hard to say because even like the averages of what you would usually find via Google, what they tell you can be helpful. Ultimately, you might get here and the week that you're here, we have an unseasonable heat wave, or it could be unseasonably cold. So the best thing to do is have a look at the averages. We have that in our London packing guide. You can also have a look online if you want, and then kind of plan that way ahead of time. But ultimately, you're gonna wanna check the forecast a couple of days before your trip and pack according to that. Does it make sense to go to Paris on a day trip? No. I mean, people do it. I've had followers tell me that they have. To me, it seems like a waste of time and money. First off, you're essentially going to be on the Eurostar for 5 hours in one day, there and back. Also, sometimes the Eurostar does have delays. I was actually on it 2 nights ago, and I ended up being delayed getting back to London about an hour and a half because there was a freak accident with the train before us with a wild boar. So if your train is delayed an hour on the way to Paris, which you probably already had to get up at 4 a.m. to be able to get that super early train, then you lose out a lot of time. And honestly, like, there's a lot to see in Paris. I think my heart breaks thinking that people go and spend like 4 hours doing God knows what and seeing like 1 or 2 things and then hopping back on the Eurostar and maybe having like an okay meal or 2. Probably not a good one because you'll be stuck in the tourist areas. So in my opinion, I think it's always best to at least do an overnight, but it's up to you. I will judge you if you do a day trip. What clothes would make me stand out as a tourist? So big things I've noticed that tourists wear, it seems like a lot of European tourists are in the same like puffy ribbed jacket. Like everybody wears those. And also a pair of jeans and then very sensible trousers. Basically, if you're in a touristy area and you're wearing clothes that is like very much functional over anything else, like a lot of Americans will wear rain jackets, again, the sneakers that are probably meant to only be for the gym, but you want to be comfortable, I understand. But if you just dress a little bit, not like I'm about to hike up a mountain and I need to make sure I'm the most comfortable ever, then that won't make you stand out as much as a tourist. Nothing wrong with being a tourist. Listen, I get it, but I know people like to ask that because they don't want to be as much of a target for pickpockets, which to me, I think that's a great idea. And if you can try to not be a target, let's do it. How much cash should I have for 4 days in London? Honestly, you can get by with no cash. I never have any cash on me. So I would say maybe like if you want to have 20 pounds for a few days, that could work. The only reason you would probably need it would be if you want to give tips to some people in cash, then you can do that. But even tipping at restaurants, that can all be put on card. And a lot of establishments here actually don't even take cash, it's card only. Can I use my US electric appliances in the UK? You can use anything that is dual voltage, and if you just do a quick Google, you can find out how to tell if your appliance is dual voltage. Basically, any laptop chargers, phone chargers these days are dual voltage. You will, however, need to get yourself a UK adapter so that the prongs, the US prongs, fit into the prongs for the UK plugs. If you have an appliance that isn't dual voltage, you can get something that's called a converter and that will make it dual voltage, and then you can plug that into the wall. However, in my experience, converters can like kind of ruin your electronics and often don't work. So I would actually just avoid that. Like if you have a hairdryer, I would just make sure you're staying at a place that provides that. That's pretty standard these days in a hotel. Where can I store my luggage until we check into our accommodation? So there's lots of options. Your hotel will usually let you store your luggage before or after you check in or check out. So that's an option. If you're staying somewhere where that isn't an option, or maybe you don't want to go all the way to your hotel to drop your stuff off before you go sightseeing, there are services like Luggage Hero where they have an app and they tell you places all around London, mostly central London, where you can pay, it's about £6 to go and leave your stuff for 24 hours. It's like little convenience shops and things like that. And they give you insurance. And so that's, I think, a really good option. Some other places will have cloak rooms and storage, some are like the big museums and stuff, but sometimes unless you're actually going there to visit and then you don't mind trudging back there, it's kind of a pain to get to. So I think the other options I gave you are better. What's the cheapest way to be able to use my phone in London since my phone company charges a lot to use it abroad? It's usually with an eSIM, which is a digital SIM card that gets downloaded and installed onto your phone from an app. You pay, it's usually like a few dollars, a few pounds for a few days of data, and then you can use your phone freely without having to change your phone number. I will give you I'll give you the company that we recommend in the resource doc plus a little discount code. Where can I exchange my money for pounds once I get to London? Don't do that. If you really want to have cash before you get here, you can order some from your bank, but honestly, the best way to get cash here is just to bring your debit card with you and go to an ATM that's attached to a bank, because they won't charge you for a cash withdrawal and get cash that way. It's the easiest. The exchange places here tend to rip you off no matter what. It's also a pain just like go find them. Is it weird to wear leggings or athleisure while sightseeing? Generally speaking, yes. I would keep any leggings or athleisure like workout clothes to the gym. Should I be tipping people at my hotel? It's not expected at all. However, nobody's gonna say no to a little bit of cash. Just keep in mind that if you do add service onto your bill at your checkout, which some hotels are actually doing that optionally anyway, that won't go to any specific people. It goes to the entirety of the staff, which is good because it means that people who work like back of house also get some of it. But if you wanted to give money to a specific person that helped you, you need to give it to them in cash directly. How far in advance do I need to apply for the ETA? Honestly, one day before. And I think like don't apply for it too early, because if there's a chance you might come back within the next couple of years, the ETA actually doesn't expire for 2 years. So if you can get 2 trips out of the 1 ETA payment, which is £16 at the moment, then let's make that work. What eSIM do you recommend I get while I'm in the UK? As mentioned, I will include a link to one in the resource doc. Okay, I have one more beautiful spot I want to take you, and I haven't been there in a while, so it is a must to go see it. Let's do it. These are the Italian gardens created in the 1860s and believed to have been a gift from Prince Albert to his beloved Queen Victoria. So cute. I love all the fountains and the flowers here, and of course the Italian marble, which is of course where the name came from. And this is a great place to do the questions under the everything else category. How can I move to the UK? Any folks I should follow, or did you share your journey? Now, I'm not sure where you're from. I've shared my journey a little bit on the internet, but it is a very long story that, to be honest, nobody can really replicate. And I will say that it's hard to be able to move to the UK. Generally though, people will say that the easiest option is to become a student, to study here, to get a student visa. Also, if you work at a company that you might be able to get an intercompany transfer, that usually seems to be a good option as well. That's what quite a lot of my friends have actually done, but otherwise it is tricky, I'm not gonna lie. Thoughts on buying a wide beam canal boat and mooring it in St. Catherine's Dock? That sounds terrible to me personally. I prefer living on land. Is it okay to impersonate Danny Dyer, even ironically? No, it's not. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you got lots of helpful information for your trip. And don't forget, if you scan this QR code, you can get the resource doc that has everything I talked about in this video and then lots more info. So go ahead and get that right there. Just scan it. And for more help with your London trip, you should watch my video about every mistake that you might make when you come to London and how to avoid them by clicking the box that's popping up right here, and go watch that next. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much.